My name is Mary Rockwell. Um, Spell it Mary, Rockwell.
Very good. What was your maiden name?
Compton.
And how was that spelled?
Compton.
Okay. Is there a funny story attached with that?
Yes, my sister, her husband having, being head of the Y12 beta process, was invited to the parties where some of the dignitaries were, and when they had visitors, this woman was introduced as Mrs. Compton, and she said, my sister said, "Well, my name was Compton. Where did you come from?" And she just looked at her sort of funny and walked away. And in fact, I wondered what that was all about. And then she later found out that Dr. Holly Compton was was her husband, and she should have gone. The hostess should have introduced her as Mrs. Holly rather than Mrs. Compton. So that the cat was out of the bag as far as that. But she didn't think anything about it, actually, because I don't think that they were at that point. Even she didn't know what her husband was doing, other than running the Y12 project there. But I came from Knoxville out to look for work when my work was shut, when the Douglas Dam was shut down, and she and I lived with her and tried to go on to school, but I found the buses that were these long trailer buses going back and forth to Knoxville, even though it was only 3 days a week. It was so difficult to keep my studies, and I met a lot of nice young men and started going to more parties, and so the studies were neglected somewhat. And so I ended up saying, well, I guess I'll have to quit school for a while and take up later. And so I did that, and I moved out to be with her because she had a larger house and had room for me. So, and we would go down to Y12 and see people at the cafeterias and that sort of thing. And Ted, among others, we ate lunch together and got to know each other. And we went to tennis dances on the tennis courts. And so we had quite a good time. We didn't really think about the war as much, other than we were, as Ted said, we were reminded that minutes counted, and we were supposed to keep the secrets and not be too free with our talk. I was going to school in Pennsylvania, and when I graduated from high school, I wasn't old enough to apply for work with the government. I was just 17, and so I worked for General Electric Company for about 10 months, and then I was accepted as a typist, actually, down in TVA, and so I went down to Knoxville and worked there and I was sent out to Douglas Dam that was being built, and then I came when the dam was shut down, I thought, well, I'll go out to Oak Ridge and see. And some of the men that I had worked for in TVA were actually in Oak Ridge, and actually in the Alpha building where I was sent to work. I first worked in the manager's office because having had secretarial experience and mostly secretarial in school, I had taken business courses. And so I went down, I was put in this Alpha building where one of the men that I had worked for in at Douglas Dam was down there. So it was like old home week being, it was familiar, and it was very, very nice. But so mainly, my life, I guess, I got more involved with the some of the social activities, and I, having done a little theater work in high school, I tried out for a play in the that was because we were trying to have some theater there in Oak Ridge, and so it I just got involved with social activities. We had tennis court dances and that sort of thing, and met a lot of people that were fun to be with. There were one of our friends was a physicist, and she later left and went back and became a doctor, and married and lived went to Baltimore to Johns Hopkins, and so we kept our friendship together. We had a number of mutual friends, so that was a benefit from, even though I had traveled all over the United States going to school, Texas and Oklahoma and Tennessee and Pennsylvania. I didn't make very many friends in those days, because you hardly had time to make friends if you were moving every year to a different school. But our best friends were there in Oak Ridge, so it was a pleasant place for me to be because being young and haven't had a chance to make lasting friendships moving around so much. So
So what did you come to then the Y12 plant as a typist was your job? Was that your job?
Yeah, well, secretarial work was just in general, because at that point, people seemed to think that I did a good job as secretary, and so I was secretary to the plant managers, and at one point I was even what they called a floating secretary, because when people would go on vacation, I would fill in for a couple of weeks here and a couple of weeks there. So I had it was kind of interesting working for different people. And when I finished, when the war was over, one of the men that I worked for in an Alpha building was with Eastman Kodak, and he asked me if I wouldn't come to Rochester, because they couldn't find good secretaries, and wondered if I'd like to come up there and work. And so I went up there for a year and worked there worked for the head of the color control department there at Eastman Kodak, and in the department where Al Kerner was the was working for his boss, Ralph Evans, who was studying color control because they were having trouble with color control in the film. They were having trouble with their magenta and their cyan and different, and they used me as a model for because I happened to have a chartreuse dress that that they were experimenting with and so forth. But that was just and then I came back because Ted kept saying, "Won't you come back to Oak Ridge?" But I finally, it was cold up there in Rochester, and it wasn't a very friendly town, and so I went back to my sister's house, and since I was just, I guess, 20 at that time, and worked some more. They took me back in Oak Ridge, so my time there, was interrupted going up to Rochester, but came back and then we were later in 47. We were married, as Ted said. So
let me pick up on one thing. Since you were in Oak Ridge and then you left to go to Eastman, Kodak, and then you came
mm-hmm.
back again.
Uh-huh.
Were they quite sure that you weren't going to be taking secrets with you?
Not that never apparently never occurred to them. The war was over at that point at 45. The bomb had been dropped. So going up to Rochester for a year and then coming back a year later, so that wasn't a problem. But no, and I don't remember ever being worried about secrets as much as a lot of the people talk about. That I just I just worked there and it didn't bother me that we were that it was such a thing about being secret, like a lot of people have talked about. But I guess I didn't talk that much, so it didn't. I never got it. Mm-hmm.
So, did you in the kinds of secretarial work you did, working for the manager, you must have had to type up the letters and.
Well, there was so much stuff that was in code. I remember writing about Mae West shields and bathtub shields and and the various things that were there. So memos were in code, and so I didn't really learn that much, I guess, that I could talk about, and so we did sort of speculate about what was going on. My coworker in the building, she said she had read an article about E.O. Lawrence, and of course that was Berkeley, and she says, "I think it has something to do with what E.O. Lawrence has been writing about," and so, but that we didn't really talk about that much. It was just, I think, one time that we did that, and I would go down, take messages down to the reactor area, and would see this yellow gunk all over the place because they were cleaning up sometimes, and I just wondered about that, but didn't ask, really what it was. I didn't really know until later that it was the uranium that was spilled out, I guess, when it was going around in the reactor.
When you say, talk about again a little more about what it was like to live in Oak Ridge and where you lived you were a single woman.
Yes,
So what was their dormitory situation?
Well, I didn't know about the dormitories because I lived with my sister in an F house, which was a 3-bedroom house, and she made one room available for me. She had a couple of children, but there was an extra bedroom, so I had that, and I had the freedom of she was always very willing, for my friends to come, and they used to come and play the piano, and we'd sing and that sort of thing. We have a picture on Ted put in his book a picture of us around the piano, so we have that with our friends there. But and she planned my wedding for me, so she sort of was a substitute mother because my mother was older and living in Nevada, and so I didn't see her very much, and so she really filled in. She was 8 years older than I, and so was a big sister, and had always been sort of more like a mother to me, and so that I had that security and having the freedom to invite my friends over, and so it was very nice. And of course, my brother-in-law was always trying to match me up with people at work, and he would invite them to dinner, and just because, I don't know whether he wanted to move me on, get me out of there or not, but anyway, he would invite young engineers over for dinner to meet me, but.
Did he ever meet Ted?
Yeah, actually, he was one who went to Princeton and knew him at Princeton, but nothing came of that. We just had a lot of close the friends that I met. There was a young man from Yale who was down in our building that was connected with the boat, and so that was how Ted was invited along on the weekend with him, with the rest of them. But so it was. We just had a lot of fun. We had the tennis court dances and that sort of thing was what we did in our spare time, and then working with the theater and with the director from Chicago, who said she had worked with Don Amici and there. So there's and we did the play Noel Coward's Hay Fever, and so I met a lot of new friends there, of course, in the theater. So.
Tell us about your wedding. When did you get married?
Well, we were married in the chapel on the hill, and my sister, God bless her, she was 6 months pregnant, and she handled the whole wedding. She did. We had her picture. We went in and had her picture made in the Knoxville paper, and she made the wedding cake, and she handled the reception, and she sang at my wedding on top of all that. And my brother-in-law gave me away, which I guess he was happy to do at that time. But so it was very nice. I had a very nice wedding, and so it was really. My sister just died just a few weeks ago, and she always wanted to go back to Oak Ridge, and never got a chance to because her daughter was so busy. They were living down in Atlanta and was so busy that didn't get a chance to take her up, and she was planning to come up and visit me, and she died just before she made the trip. So her daughter did come up to Oak Ridge and had and brought her family, and we went to see our F house and sort of made a tour of Oak Ridge, and she met the man that knew him, and she was really delighted at that because she was because she'd been so busy as she was an executive to several companies over the years and was always very busy, and didn't have time to take my sister up to Oak Ridge. So she was very, felt very good that she was able to talk to somebody that knew her father, which was, and her children. She brought her children up, and so his grandchildren did get to meet her, and did get that opportunity to go to Oak Ridge. So
when you came back, has Oak Ridge changed a lot since the war? How has it different?
Well, we got lost, Ted and I, when we went to try to drive around, because the Oak Ridge Turnpike had become so big, and there was so much thing. We'd been down there before when Ted had made talks, and I was taking pottery lessons from Jane Larson, who had been married to Clarence Larson, who was the head of the project there for a while, and it was just really, of course, very different, because they had all these the more restaurants and more the streets were the same, but I guess because we hadn't been there in so long, it was sort of strange going around. And we went back to our little bee house that we lived in when we first were married. First we lived in an efficiency apartment, and then we were eligible when our son was born. Our first son was born in Oak Ridge, and we got a bee house. And I took them over. We went over to see the bee house, and it looked so different because they had added something on the front, and it just didn't. I said, I'm sure this was our house, because I remembered where our neighbors lived, and my son would wander around. He was 2 when we went up to Washington, but he was wandering all over the neighborhood. But I said, I can't be sure because it looked so different. But we finally decided they had done so many changes to the house that this was it. So
I think I'll have you give you the address. I mean, do you have pictures of the house before and after?
Let's see. I think we did have the bee. I think I did have a picture of the house in there.
Great.
Actually, the scrapbook, I sort of made what I had there, and then when I went back, I didn't really complete it, I guess. There were a lot of things I could have put in, and I haven't really, I put this in the scrapbook and haven't had much time to go back and really peruse it, so it's...
That one paper is loose that says Oak Ridge attacks Japanese that you can hold up. That was the Oak Ridge.
Yeah, well,
It was completely erased.
that's okay.
Here, you can pass that to me now.
It says, workers thrill as atomic bomb secret breaks. Press and radio stories describe fantastically powerful weapon expected to save many lives. Bomb has more power than 20,000 tons of TNT. Pride is reaction of workers. So we felt proud that we had done the job and been a part of it. And of course they sent letters out, Clinton Engineer Works, saying thank you for your part in it. So it made us feel good that we had played a part in it. It was interesting. But
So you have been to Japan?
yes, we went over to Hiroshima. It's either Hiroshima or Hiroshima. People say both, but we went, and actually they paid Ted's way, and we had a delightful time, and they were very nice to us. I was the only woman that was in in the crowd, and it was very nice to be accepted. So you know, because they really don't pay that much attention, I think, to the women over there.
What year was this?
Oh dear, when was it? Oh, yeah. Well, they're very appreciative of anything you do, and I'm a potter. I have dabbled in watercolors and paints and so forth. After my children started growing up, I had a chance to work in that, and I made a little tea bowl and took it to him. And every time he sees me, he says, "We enjoy the tea bowl so much. My wife and I go into the park on the weekend and we have tea in your bowl, and we appreciate it so much." He was very appreciative of it, and they were just very, very nice to us. We spent some time afterwards. Well, before we went over there, we went to a radon mine together and did our had the experience of the radon and found that was helpful in helping my ankle feel better. So and they.
One child. Was that during the war or was after?
Well, at that time, our first son was born. Was 2 when we went to work with Admiral Rickover. He went to Washington. But and then our other 3 children were born in Bethesda and Chevy Chase. So I've had 3 boys and a girl.
Well, tell me some more. Tell me some stories. Some funny. Do you have any funny stories or reminiscences of that time that Ted didn't dare tell?
Well, I don't know. My memories sort of, a lot of those things have faded, but I guess the boat rides were on the lake, on Norris Lake, were fun, and we used to have dinners. There were a group of 5 women who had a house, a D house, which is they made into a dormitory. And this one, Ann Bishop, was a physicist in Y12. And they used to have parties there, dinner parties, and we'd go out together. But in those days, we didn't date specifically. We would, as Ted would say, sometimes he didn't know which girl he was having a date with, because we all dated, as a group. We didn't do a lot of pairing off like what they do more these days. But we used to have a lot of fun doing picnics and things like that going on. I guess I made a chocolate cake one time, and I left something out today, and so I wasn't left an ingredient out that I remember. I didn't do much cooking at that point, and I think it didn't turn out very well. But I don't remember. I'm afraid I can't remember too many instances. Other than we used to have a lot of fun singing around the piano at my sister's house, and they knew they had a place that they could come and because when they lived in the dormitories or even in the D house, they didn't get to mix very much with get out to the bigger houses. Yes, yeah.
How did you feel when you read that letter?
Well, I thought that was a nice thing to do, a nice thing to have. It's, with all the people that were there, I wondered how many. I guess whether they, everyone got one of those letters. Perhaps, I don't know.
So it's actually this letter. Maybe you'd like to read the first line, because I think it speaks to the secrecy is first and foremost.
Yeah. To the men and women of Clinton Engineer Works, today the whole world knows the secret which you have helped us keep for many months. I am pleased to be able to add that the warlords of Japan now know its effects better even than we ourselves. The atomic bomb, which you have helped to develop with high devotion to patriotic duty, is the most devastating military weapon that any country has ever been able to turn against the enemy. No one of you has worked on the entire project or known the whole story. Each of you has done his own job and kept his own secret, and so today I speak for a grateful nation when I say congratulations and thank you all. I hope you will continue to keep the secrets you have kept so well. The need for security and for continued effort is fully as great now as it ever was. We are proud of every one of you. Robert Patterson, Undersecretary of War, Washington, D.C. That was August the 7th. It was pretty prompt after the event from the War Department in Washington. So. Mm-hmm.
And this article, maybe one of you.
Atomic bomb workers happy over job. Now that certain of the restrictions surrounding the Clinton Engineering Works near Knoxville have been lifted, and the workers know what they are making, they are happy and proud because they were chosen. Here, CEW workers leave one of the divisions after finishing the day's work. So there we are coming up out of Y12. My building was down that way. So it.
And how did you get back and forth from the site Y12 to where you lived?
A bus. We had a bus system in Oak Ridge, and we just take the bus down to the entrance of Y12 and go in. Yeah.
And what were your shift hours?
Didn't have a shift. It was daytime, just 8 to 5, I guess. I didn't do shift work. I was shiftless.
Yeah. But was Y12 open all 44 hours?
Yeah,
were there
but of course the office, the manager's office, and where I worked, I just worked the daytime, because I was just working for the superintendents of the building.
That's great. You might as well read this because I think this is just they had lunch or something. Because I think that's a good one.
Atomic power discovery seen equal to invention of speech. That's the one Ted liked. That being that was from the London. That was from a London news report. So.
Were there any British at Oak Ridge that you knew of?
Yes, I think so. I think we didn't, but I didn't make any friends or know anybody that was. I guess there must have been some with British background, but I'm not sure though whether. I think it was.
And this one says Stimson visited and praised the project. Do you remember that? He flew down in April. 45.
Stimson visited and praised project. That was August the 7th, right after. So Secretary of War Stimson expressed great satisfaction with the atomic bomb progress at Oak Ridge when he inspected the production plants. It was revealed today. So.
That's kind of unusual. That's April?
August, huh?
Oh, that's August.
August
Yeah.
45, August 7th. So that was apparently, that was when all the, and the Ridge post office was a little slot that that's where you were supposed to put your mail in, and not take it off into Knoxville and mail it. Because everything that had to be, I guess, inspected when they were sent it. But, yeah.
So do you, by and large, have fond memories of those days?
Yes, I do. Because they were good times, and I guess because I had traveled so much around the United States, going to different schools, that it was during, of course, the Depression. I was a Depression child, as you might say, and so it made it necessary for me to live with my brothers and sisters. I lived with my brother in Pittsburgh while he was going to medical school, and then I lived with my sister, and I even lived in Texas with a friend, going to a Texas school for a while, and in Oklahoma. I was born in Shawnee, Oklahoma, which was just outside of Oklahoma City, and so it was nice to be. I was there longer than I was anywhere, with my my school years being so interrupted, but it's so there were happy times for me. It was a serious job, and I knew that, but it was still, we still had fun while it was going on, and the mud and all of that. We did experience that mud of leaving our shoes sometimes so deep in the mud we couldn't get them out, that sort of thing. But it was. But we used to enjoy we had a movie house that saw movies pretty often. It's now a live theater in Oak Ridge. Now they're doing theater plays in the place where we used to see movies. So that's a change, going back and seeing things are different.